Good afternoon to our friends and visitors, and thank you for joining us once again here at the Ora News broadcast for our daily English news edition. As usual, I'm Daniel Cook, your host, Monday through Saturday, presenting a translated version of today's top news stories. The Democratic chairman, Basha, has made an attempt to distance his party from the violent acts of yesterday's protest. The chairman explained that the organizers of the protest tried to restrain the anger of the citizens and tried to keep the situation from escalating. However, Basha considers the citizens who destroyed the bunker to be heroes, emphasizing that yesterday's protest was only the beginning of civil disobedience, which will continue until the current government is removed. Basha saluted the Democratic supporters who participated in the protest and expressed the determination of the opposition to continue protesting until the government is removed from power. He declared that the removal of the government is the only solution to the grave economic and social condition of the country. He said, "The massive participation of the citizens in the protest was a clear message of support for the Democratic Party and for the solution we offer to overcome the crisis, which is to remove Rama and Mehta and to prepare early elections. Civil disobedience has already begun, and the protests will continue. There is no other solution other than the removal of this government and the establishment of a technical government. The massive participation in the protest is the awakening of the courage and freedom of the citizens," said Chairman Basha. After the reaction of the diplomatic bodies in the country who with one voice condemned the violence used during the protest, the Democratic Party stated that the chairman stated that his party was not responsible for the anger of the citizens. The Democratic Party has always distanced itself from violence and from violent actions, he said. The anger of the citizens was stopped thanks to the Democratic Party. Our party reps stopped the citizens from throwing stones. No violence was done to police officers, and I am proud of this because this is the standard of the Democratic Party, declared Mr. Basha. A day after the opposition protest, the state police have begun a legal prosecution against the former vice mayor of Tirana, Eno Bozdo, and the head of the Association of the Former Politically Persecuted. The police have initiated a criminal case against Eno Bozdo as the organizer of the protest yesterday, in which a great deal of illegal activity took place. They clarify that he is under investigation for organizing and participating in illegal meetings. The head of the politically persecuted is under investigation for encouraging his protesters to commit illegal and violent acts. 5 people have been arrested so far for destruction of public property, disturbing the public order, and resisting the police. 2 more have been declared wanted. The police statement reads, "These measures are being taken after the protests deviated from their prearranged itinerary, escalating to acts of violence, such as damaging the entry of the Prime Minister's office, breaking several windows of the Prime Minister's building, and the intentional demolition of the museum that is under construction, the bunker, and for breaking the windows of the Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure." The notification says that the prosecution has seized the video footage and is investigating the case. The police have announced that all those involved in illegal actions will be prosecuted by the law. INSTAT has reported a slight increase of inflation in November caused by the increase of food prices. According to the Institute of Statistics, inflation has now reached 2.1%, up from the 1.7% that it was last November. Food prices rose by 5.9% this November, compared to 1 year ago. Even with this increase, inflation remains low, reflecting the uncertainty of the citizens in the economy. The numbers show that the increase in inflation in November was primarily due to the increase of prices in the food category, while the prices in transport, including oil, experienced a slight decline, as well as clothing and footwear. The governor of the Bank of Albania, Gent Seko, reported at today's meeting of the Economic Commission on the budget for 2016. He stated that the budget needs to be more realistic and should avoid expenditures for things like furniture, equipment, and training projects. Mr. Seko called the government to be more prudent in this regard, insisting that public investments should be made a priority. According to him, the budget should help the long-term sustainability of public finance. He said, "In our view, the the budget must comply with two important objectives. First, it should be a realistic budget based on cautious forecasts. Second, it should help the long-term sustainability of public finances. According to the projections of the draft budget, the revenue is expected to reach 417.7 billion lek in 2016, or about 27.7% of the gross domestic product. This value represents an annual increase of 4.9% compared to the planned level for 2015. Meanwhile, public spending in 2016 will be about 452.1 billion lek, or 29.5% of the GDP. The 2016 budget deficit is projected to be 34.4 billion lek, or around 41% lower than it was a year ago. In terms of gross domestic product, the budget deficit is a reduction of 1.8% compared to that of 2015. This reduction is due to the payment of arrears, which had an impact of 1.3 percentage points, and fiscal policies, which had an impact of 0.5 percentage points, said Mr. Seiko. The BOA governor considered the public debt to be a problem, despite the government's prediction of decreasing debt in 2016. He announced that there will soon be a new formula applied that will reduce the interest of the loans. He did not give any further details. Today, the Parliamentary Health Commission discussed the 2016 budget and the rejection of the stakeholders for the cost of insurance for the free professions. According to the decision of the government, practitioners of free professions, or private practices, will have to pay for insurance based upon the maximum wage. 17 categories of free professions, represented by their unions, have been outspoken against this decision. They demand individual categorization, saying that otherwise they will increase the prices of their services out of necessity. The head of the Chamber of Lawyers stated once again that this law will send private legal practices into bankruptcy. Other reps said that it would enable the creation of monopolies. These organizations were not alone in their stance against the new law, receiving support from the Socialist Movement for Integration, the closest ally of the government. The SMI MP Petrit Vasili said that the government needs to consider the different wages earned by different free professions and categorize them accordingly. A meeting was organized today by the European University of Tirana in the framework of the International Day Against Corruption. It was attended by representatives of the government, the media, and the diplomats in the Albanian state. Several of these diplomats stated that corruption in Albania has reached a critical point. The EU ambassador Romana Vlahutin said that political parties must be more transparent with the use of their funds. She said that there is a culture of impunity in Albania, and in the interest of fighting this, the European Union will allocate a fund of €10 million to assist the fight against corruption. The OSCE ambassador Florian Raunig issued the challenge that the fight against corruption begins with ourselves. He said that the fight does not only belong to the government, but to everyone. The students of the university were skeptical about how the war against corruption will be waged, as long as the revenues of the government officials are not made public. The Minister of State for Local Issues, Bledi Chuchi, announced that the government has undertaken an initiative that will soon be turned into a law to force the highest officials of state to be transparent regarding their wealth. During the meeting, the internationals indicated that they consider the media to be an ally in the fight against corruption, to sensitize and increase the pressure of the public opinion. The Assembly of Honorary Councils was held today in Romania. The various associations of councils discussed the importance of economic diplomacy and the measures to integrate the refugees from the war zones. Representatives from the European Federation of Honorary Councils discussed the current situation in Europe, the necessary measures for the treatment and integration of refugees from countries at war, and the importance of strengthening diplomatic relations. The Assembly discussed the need for cooperation on global initiatives for promoting peace and cooperation in the world. The Albanian Association of Honorary Councils was represented by the Vice Chairwoman, Belma Cela. Since its creation 2 years ago, the Association of Honorary Councils of Albania has been active not only in the field of diplomacy, but also in various areas of interest to strengthen relations between the countries represented by the councils. In this context, the association aims to unite the voices of consuls to promote and mutually support the work and activities they perform in Albania. The Albanian Association is an active member in the European Federation of Honorary Consuls. Once again, thank you for joining us for our daily English news edition. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with more translated news in English. Have a great night and see you tomorrow.